Tell me about yourself. It is the one question you are guaranteed to be asked in an interview, and yet so many people waste the answer on that question when it's the one that they could make the most compelling case for why they're a good fit for the job. Today, I'm going to show you how to strategically answer this question, how to prepare for it, and make sure you stay till the end because we'll talk about some common concerns, like how personal should you really get yourself? This question should be focused on work. Now, we'll talk about the personal part later, but the main focus should be your work journey. Any experiences from the past that led you to why you are in the room today. So make sure it ends with why you're sitting in that chair. Your answer should be about 3 to 7 minutes long. Some people say 5 to 7. I think it depends on the position and how much past experience you've had. Yes, they have your resume in front of them, but they want to hear a little more about some of those things and the stories that go with it, so you can go a little bit deeper. You're not going to give every detail of every situation, so just hit the highlights. Talk about the job, the position you had there, and what you did that matters to this position you're sitting in the room for today. All right, so how to prepare. A little story time first. I used to work in casting game shows, and I had to ask this question 50 times a day. Tell me about yourself. The first question you're gonna ask, tell me about yourself. And people do not know how to answer it. They sit there and go, well, that's a loaded question. Really? I just want to know about you. And if you don't practice it, for some reason, it is super hard for us to figure out what do we want to say about ourselves. We're complicated creatures. So we've got to practice ahead of time, focusing on a strategic message that we want to give when someone asks us that question, especially in an interview. All right, so to prepare and not bomb it like the people did when casting game shows, you want to go through your past positions, write a past position, write a highlight experience from that, and what from it matters to the job you're sitting in the room for today. Use that job description that they gave you, that you used when you applied. Use that to make connections between you and your past experiences. And like I said before, you want to hit highlights only because obviously you're sitting in the interview. They're going to go deeper on some of these things and ask you more questions where you're going to talk further in length probably about some of these experiences. So you just want to hit a highlight or two because this is your chance to show, hey, these are the experiences I've had and why I think they matter to you and to this position. It's a great chance to get things on paper that maybe you're afraid they might not ask you about, but you think could be relevant. So as I said before, this is your one chance to make a compelling case. Well, it's the one chance you know you have to make a compelling case of why you're a great fit for the position. So take those bullet points, and I tend to put them on an index card. I take each job or each position and what from it connects to the job and kind of bullet point them to formulate my answer. And then don't forget, why are you sitting in the room today? Now, sometimes this question does come up of, tell me about yourself and why you're interested in the position. And sometimes they ask, tell me about yourself. And then they'll follow up after with, why are you interested in the position? So if they just say, tell me about yourself, give a sentence answer of why you're interested. And then just be prepared that they may ask you to dive deeper on that as question number 2. But you want to end on why you're sitting in that room that day. So because of all this past experience, I think it has prepped me that I am now qualified to take on the role of manager. Or my past experience working in these teams taught me how to manage a group. And so that is why I'm excited to take that into action in this position, right? I don't know. It's up to you. You have to decide what that's going to be, but figure out how it connects to today. And then don't forget, you also want to use this to talk about their mission, their values. Maybe there's something there that you want to share as well. And I'm excited for this position because I've only worked in this environment over here, but now I want to work with a company that aligns with my mission and values, my personal mission and values. And so I know that your company really, cares about, let's say, environmentalism or making everybody feel included, and that aligns with my personal values as well. Something like that. Basically, your answer to this question is your personal statement of who you are and why you are ready for this position. So think about it in those terms. Don't forget, when you have to go deeper on all those other questions, those will most likely happen in behavioral questions, and I've created a video for you on those. I'll put a card to it here and a link in the description box below. Just because you wrote down those bullet points, you are not done. You now need to practice. Don't just go through it in your head. It's really easy to look at that card or look at that piece of paper and read it in your head as if it's flowing as a conversation, and then try and say it out loud. It tends to go south the first time, but good. You're home alone. Who cares? You went south at home. Now you can practice it until it flows, until those words come clearly and the transitions move together well, and then you're going to give a great poised answer to that question. So the biggest question or concern I get with this tell me about yourself statement is, how personal should I get? Now, overall, it should be focused towards your work. So this is not the time to say, I love long walks on the beach, or I'm obsessed with comic books, unless you're interviewing at Marvel. So if something personal about you really relates to the position or why you want to work at that company, then please bring it up. If it's at Marvel and you love comic books, don't just say, oh, I really love comics. Prove it to me. Say, I have every issue of X-Men ever created and I save all my money every year to go to San Diego Comic-Con. Even though it's gone totally mainstream, I'm still a fan, right? Like whatever it is, but if it goes to them, share it. Some people will tell you you should never answer this question with your personal life, but I think there are places where it can have a fit and where the interviewer actually does want to know just more about you as a person. So share some of those personal details, but as I said before, make sure they're related to the job. Maybe it's something of your fandom for this company or this industry. And maybe it has to do with their values and how they align with yours and how you've done all this volunteer work in this area, or this is a cause that you want to get behind that you learned about just last year. Like anything like that relates to the position. The other way I see it coming out is if you have a lot of volunteer experience or something with church, like you're interviewing for an event planning job and you've never done event planning professionally paid, but you've organized every youth group retreat for the last 4 years, you got to bring it up, right? So I would share it in those cases. Just make sure those things you're saying are relevant to the position. It's not just a one-off like, oh yeah, and in my free time I make YouTube videos. Okay, so to recap, the answer to tell me about yourself should be strategically crafted to highlight how past work experiences have brought you to the point of why you are sitting in the room today. You should prepare by going through your work history and finding those stories and highlighting experiences that have prepared you for this new position. And lastly, it's okay to get personal at times as long as it's related to the company or the position you're interviewing for. Have you ever been asked in an interview, tell me about a time you had to deal with a conflict at work? Or tell me about a time there were compromising priorities on the job and you had to figure out what went first. Well, those are called behavioral interview questions. They are a favorite among recruiters and hiring managers, and they are not always the easiest to answer if you haven't given it some preparation. So today, I'm going to show you the right way to answer behavioral questions, how to figure out what behavioral questions they'll probably ask you, and make sure you stay till the end because I will give you my bonus tip on how to answer the secret question that is often hidden within behavioral questions. Okay, so first off, what are behavioral questions? So behavioral questions are any of those questions, I can't say the word questions today, guys, any of those questions that start off with tell me about a time when, or describe a situation where. They often lead to more conversational interviewing, and they are a chance for an interviewer to see your thought process behind why you did what you did. Behavioral questions are really hard to answer if you haven't given it some forethought, but how do you know what behavioral questions they'll ask you? Well, you need to look at the job description. The questions they're going to ask are most likely related to what is on that job description when you applied for the position. So Hopefully you saved it. Go through the job description line by line and see what categories are listed. Does the job ask for teamwork, for managing multiple priorities, for multitasking, for communication skills? Look at each of those categories, find each of those categories, and now find a story from your past experiences that aligns with each of those. So there is a right way to answer a behavioral question, and fun fact, one time I spent 20 minutes, take a second and take that in, 20 minutes answering a behavioral question because I didn't know the right way to answer it. And I rambled and rambled trying to dig myself out of a hole to explain the situation. So don't be me, let me help you. There is a great method called the STAR method that will help you answer these questions well. STAR is an acronym and it stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. The STAR method is awesome because it helps you stay on track so you don't ramble. Plus, it will give you clear and concise answers of the method you use and the transformation that happened from what you did. So, if somebody says, tell me about a time when, and a certain experience, you're going to give the situation and the task of where that occurrence happened, what the situation was around it, what the task was that you were given. Then you're gonna give the action you took on that. To everyone, they think, to a lot of candidates, I should say, they think this is the meat of it. Like, oh, this is the part that matters. I took action. So if it was dealing with conflict in a group and you had a group project you were working on or working on a team in a job and somebody wasn't pulling their weight, in the action, you're gonna talk about what you did to help that person along or how you went and talked to them and figured out how you could work together, right? People think that's the most important part. You need to talk about it. Please don't forget the R, the result. This is the most important part. You want to give what happened after. So let's say it is that you had a conflict with someone and you went and talked to them and made your case and tried to make them feel heard. A lot of people will stop there and be like, and I made them feel heard. What did they say? Did they feel heard? Did they come join the team again? Did they get their part of the work done? Have you worked successfully together ever since? Let me know the result. So, and from that meeting, he and I had a great relationship from there on, and we've actually partnered on 3 more projects. That is what shows change and transformation, so you want to make sure you're showing that result. So here's another example. Let's say they ask, tell us about a time you had to make a split-second decision. You had to make a decision right in the moment. You've prepared, you saw it, it said in the job description, you must be able to make quick decisions or think on your feet, so you were ready for this question. So you're going to give the situation and the task. Sometimes these blur together. Situation task kind of goes together. So you could say, well, I was at my job at Panera. My manager had just stepped out on break, and a woman came up to the counter complaining that her food was ice cold. And she brought it up to me and I saw there were even pieces of ice in it. This happened to me once. There were even pieces of ice in the salad. It was just way, way too cold. Obviously, no one could eat that. So normally, that is something my manager would take care of. If he were there, I would have to go to him and say, hey, this woman had a cold salad, can I refund her money? But since he was on break, I needed to think for myself, and I decided, you know what, I'd rather take the heat from the manager if I did the wrong thing, and they can just take the money out of my paycheck. But I apologized to the woman, I got a new order for her, made sure the salad was the right temperature, and refunded her money, and also gave her a coupon for next time because she was just so beyond upset. And so most people will stop there. So that was the situation, the task, and the action. But now you've got to give me the result. What did the manager say? Did they like what you did? What happened? So don't forget that result. And when my manager came back, I filled him in on the situation, and he said I made the right call and actually complimented me on my skills to take initiative and make sure our customer was happy. And she actually has come back multiple times since, so she seemed satisfied with the service. That's it. But if you didn't practice this beforehand, You could be rambling a good long time, giving way too much description in the story, talking way too long about how you came to what you did. So as long as you focus on that situation, task, action, result, you should be good. Okay, so bonus tip time. That one little piece of advice that will seal the deal for you on these questions. Ask for clarification. So they ask you the whole long question. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with a conflict on the job with another coworker. So you start talking. Start giving the situation and the task, and then stop and say, is this along the lines of what you're looking for? They want to see that you are good with feedback and that you're making sure you're always on track with what you're doing. I have heard about this from multiple recruiters that they want you to ask this question. They want you to ask for clarification. So even at the beginning, if you're not sure if they want the question to go this way or this way, ask for clarification. Say, oh, are you looking for something related more to this area of the job or this area of the job? If it's a little ambiguous, it's okay to ask for that clarification, and it actually can really impress the person you're sitting across from. So to recap, behavioral interview questions can be quite difficult to answer if you haven't prepared ahead of time. But if you use that job description and go through line by line, you can figure out what they're going to ask you. And then you can use the STAR method to take your stories and put them into clear and concise answers. And don't forget, ask that question at the end. Is this what you were looking for? Or could I get some clarification on which direction you'd like me to go with that? And it'll show your awesome feedback skills in the process of giving great answers. What's your biggest weakness is one of those questions people love to ask in interviews, but we may not be quite as excited to answer it. So today I am going to show you the old school advice that just needs to go away on how to answer this question. Then I will show you the proper way to answer it, and I'll even give you a formula of how to answer it and some sample answers to make this one just a little bit easier than it probably seems right now. The wrong way to answer this question, and that is the old school advice of turn a weakness into a strength, or disguise a strength as a weakness, whatever. These are those answers like, oh, I'm just such a workaholic. I just have no idea how to do work-life balance. Basically saying like, yeah, I'll work for you all the time and I'll get all my work done. Or I get so caught up in the details. I just care about the nitty-gritty so much. Great, you have strong attention to detail. Here's the thing with those types of answers. People see through it. We've all read this advice, we've all seen it somewhere. Everyone knows you're trying to disguise a strength as a weakness. Now I do think, and we'll talk about it a little later in an example, I do think there are certain things that are strengths in situations and weaknesses in others, and what you want to give for a weakness probably will be situational. Just know that. That goes into the right way to answer this question. For the what's your biggest weakness question, number one, you're not going to give your biggest weakness. And you are not going to give a weakness that is directly related to what you are doing. But you are going to give an actual weakness. This feels hard. This feels like you're laying your cards on the table, right? But they want to see that you're self-aware and know you're not perfect. So what you want to do is you want to give an actual weakness, but one that is not directly related to what you are doing. So for example, if you are in sales, you are not going to say, oh, my biggest weakness is that I'm kind of shy and I just have a real hard time approaching new people. That's not going to work. That's the core of that job, is to go talk to new and different people. So it doesn't work for that. You have to think relative to your situation, what is something you're not great at, and then you're going to talk about how you're working on it. So that is the formula, essentially. State your weakness, how it affects your work or your life in some way, and is a weakness in situations. And then don't forget, you're going to finish on how you're working on it right now. One of the best answers I ever heard for this was from a client who's actually an animator and worked in an animation studio. She was very soft-spoken. It wasn't surprising when she said, well, my weakness is that I'm very shy and highly introverted. Two things that are totally fine to be when you're an animator. It's a pretty independent job in most situations. You're off at your desk drawing by yourself. But she said, I realize this is a weakness because I'm not really connected at work. I don't know everyone as well as I could. So I decided that instead of eating lunch by myself, I would go up and sit with other animators for lunch each day. And from that, it's been great. I've met friends, I've learned new skills because I've heard more of their process and how they do things. And so it's really improved my animation as a result as well. And I'm going to continue trying to get out of my shell a little bit and meet new people. It's a great answer. It's not affecting the core of her work. She can still do her job, but she showed how life got just a little bit better by working on that weakness. My go-to answer is very situational. I am an external processor and I have an opinion on everything. In certain cases, that's great. Oh, I'll brainstorm like crazy. But my answer to this question is always, well, I'm an external processor, I'm very opinionated, and I don't mind sharing opinions because I like bouncing off people that way. However, I've realized it can look overbearing or a little too much when in every meeting when a question's asked, I'm the first to share my opinion. And I can see where that gets hard for others who maybe needed a moment to internally process and think through their answer and maybe wanted to share something else but feel like they now can't. Because of that, I now intentionally do not answer first in meetings and I give people a breath and I wait and try and hear a couple of people's answers before giving my own. That's it. It doesn't say, oh, I'm a horrible person, but it's something I've realized I need to work on because I want to make sure other people have the opportunity to feel heard as well. It's not going to affect my day-to-day in my work, but it does show some growth, which is something you want to prove to this hiring manager. Okay, so to recap, answering the tell me your biggest weakness question, it takes a little practice, but it can be done. To answer it, don't share a strength disguised as a weakness, but instead share a weakness that's situational and will not affect the day-to-day work of your job if hired. And please don't forget to share how you've been working on it and the improvement that you've seen. Why are you interested in working here should be one of the easiest questions to answer when going on a job interview, but yet we can still mess it up. In this video, I will give you the main points you want to cover and how to answer why are you interested in this position. Why do you want to work here, or why are you interested in this position? Well, there are some key things you need to do. There's actually 3. So number 1, you're going to connect your past experience to this experience. Number 2, you are going to show you did your research on the company. Number 3, you are going to demonstrate your excitement or enthusiasm for the position. So first, your answer needs to connect past experiences to this position. So kind of similar to what you did in Tell Me About Yourself, you are going to need to think through what things have you done in the past, but give specific situations that represent what you could do for them in this position in the future. And the key on this is you have to be specific. So even if it's something like they need someone to run social media, you need to not just say, oh, I can do social media for you, I did it for my club. You're gonna say, well, I know in this position I would be handling the social media accounts and trying to grow our numbers there. In my organization on campus, I was actually in charge of all our social media and I increased our followers by 50% and I also therefore increased our membership in the club by 25%. Those would be good numbers. And then tell them, remember it's why are you interested in working here? So not just qualifications, add to that the enthusiasm piece that we talk about. Third, but a little hint of it here, make sure you say you really enjoy doing social media, but give that specific example. Okay, so even if this is like a stretch job, something that's kind of the next step up in your career journey and you haven't maybe done exactly that before, talk about what you've done that led up to this moment that you think made you prepared to take this next step. So for example, if it's a management position and you've never been an official manager before, but you were the lead during all your shifts at your part-time job for the last year, that counts. Talk about the leadership skills you gained from that and how you're ready to move to this next step. So really on this, you have to prepare ahead of time and think, what are the key things that I want them to know I've done that qualify me for this position? And then you need to correlate for them why those things matter. We think people are always going to be tracking with us and know exactly why we're telling them what we're telling them, but they don't know. You have to finish by making that connection. So even with the social media example, that's why you can't just say, oh, I did social media before and I do social media here. Well, the question was, why are you interested? So it needs to be more than just, I did this thing and it qualifies. It's, and I like doing that thing and I'd be excited to do more of it. So your answer to this question is the one where you also get to show that you have done your research on the company, the department, the division, etc., and you're excited to work for a company such as this one. So truly, in your prep, be asking yourself, why am I excited to work for this company? Why do they interest me? Are they a leader in the industry? Are they super innovative? Did you read their HR culture page and you know that they treat people like people, including their employees? Like, what about them excites you? You want to make sure you state that in your answer. You don't just say like, well, and I know this is a great company to work for. No, talk about what really matters to you. You can get professionally personal on this one. Don't go too deep. You're not going to say, oh, I love that you have tons of sick time because I actually get sick a lot. Like, no, but you can talk about the fact that I love that you're a really innovative company and you're not afraid to try something new. And that's really important to me because I like taking on new challenges and trying things. And I know they're not all going to work, but I like having the room to fail and try. If that aligns with that company's mission, woo, that's going to be a great answer. Now, if they're like, we're traditional and we like doing things the right way the first time, probably not the answer you're going to give. So be reading and researching about the company and drop that knowledge in this answer. And then lastly, you have to show some enthusiasm when you're answering this question. You have to let them know you actually are interested in the position. It's a shocking thing. People on the interviewee side often think, well, I'm in the room interviewing, so isn't it obvious I want the position? But it's really not. You could be there for a myriad of reasons. And so you need to let them know, I am excited and interested in this position. And here's why. I always say, like, when you answer this question, your eyes should light up a little bit because you're excited to work there. When we talk about things we're excited about, our eyes light up. You want me to talk about iced coffee? Eyes light up. You want me to talk about Top Chef? Let's go. Eyes light up. Like, when we talk about what we like, we get excited, we get a little more vibrant in our face. So make sure that you actually say the words that you're interested in the position and your face shows it. Your body language shows it. We're interested. We lean forward. Our eyes smize, right? So keep that going throughout your answer to this question. So why should we hire you? I will be honest, I think this is one of the most loaded questions in an interview. It is right up there with what's your greatest weakness, but doesn't mean you don't have to answer it. If you practice and strategize, I promise you can have a great answer to this question that directly relates you to the position and puts you above every other candidate. Why should we hire you is a slightly nuanced, different version of why are you interested in this position? They sound similar, they are different questions. Now, if you need help with how to answer why are you interested in this position, I did a whole video about it. You can find it in the card here and I'll put it in the description box below. But now let's get into why should we hire you? Answering the question, why should we hire you, is your opportunity to give your unique value proposition to the company. Yes, your unique value proposition. So basically, you want to show what makes you stand out from other candidates, what makes you uniquely qualified for the position. This means during your interview prep, you need to really research the company, the department, the position. Go through and take notes. What are they looking for that you think most candidates won't have that you have? I mean, it's a known fact that very rarely does anybody fit all the qualifications in a job description. And there are some that are probably a little more wish list item than others. So look for those. And if you have them, this is where we star it and go, okay, I'm going to talk about that. So for example, I will use myself. I work as a career counselor at a college with all students that are looking at communications fields, a lot of those wanting to go into entertainment. And when I looked at the job description for this position, they were looking for someone who had career background, like had worked in a career center before, had a degree in higher education, but in the like additional qualities section, it said, would love a background in film, television, etc. Now, how many people have a master's in higher education and have worked in entertainment before? Let me tell you, very few. So I knew immediately I am going to be a highly qualified candidate for this position above others because I have this weird skill set that most people aren't going to have. I had my master's in higher education. I had worked in a career center at a college for a year, and oh yeah, I worked in television for 10 years. So what a weird set of skills to end up bringing, but it made me really unique and great for the position. So your answer to this question should hit on some of those key qualities they're looking for in a candidate, but you should also give that little extra, like, hey, on top of these things, here's where I think I can go above and beyond all the other candidates. Now, you don't need to say all the other candidates, but think about the ways that you can go above and beyond and share that. And it should be based on your skills. Now, I know you might be sitting here going, but what if I don't have any unique skills? Like, what if this is kind of the next step in my career and I have the basic qualifications, but nothing that makes me unique? Well, this is when we need to share our passion, okay? This is when you're going to say, I know you are looking for somebody who can do the job, and I think my answers on these questions have shown I can do the job, but I want you to know it's not that I can just do the job, I am passionate about this job. And then tell them why. People love to just go, and I'm really passionate about this job. Oh, wow, I believe you. No, your eyes should light up a little bit. You should be giving them clear facts of what makes you passionate. So if this is your dream company and they create a magazine, tell them how you have read that magazine every month since you were 12. Like, you've got to back it up with why you're passionate about the company or about the position. Tell them how you love getting into project management and why you think it's good for you or whatever the thing is, but give an example. And that's really key. Whether it is passion or unique qualities, qualifications you have from the past, you have to give examples in either case. You can't just say, like, let's say it's something where you realize the company doesn't really have any social media and you've done social media for the last 2 years in your last position and you think that's something extra you could bring to this position on top of the qualifications and the job description. You're not just going to say, oh yeah, I think I'm unique because on top of these things that you want, I could also run your social media. No, you're going to say, well, for the last 2 years, I ran the social media at my last company or at my current company. And in that time, I, increased our followers by blah, blah, blah numbers and impressions by such and such percentages. And I'd be really happy to do that for this company as well, on top of the things listed in that job description. So an example was given. So examples are key. We've already talked about weaknesses, but today we are going to talk about the opposite end, that interview question, what are your strengths? So I still see this question asked in interviews a lot. I've actually asked it in interviews, and I will say, shockingly, it's one that I see answered really poorly most of the time. So today we're going to talk about the right way to answer this question so that you get that careers through practical tips to gain confidence. Let's get started. Here's the mistake I see made a lot with this question. As I said in the intro, I use this one all the time, especially with college students, and I will ask, what's your strength? And they will tend to just list off for me a bunch of words, bunch of strengths. So what's your strength? Oh, well, I'm really organized and I have like really good time management skills, and I think, yeah, I'm a leader. Okay, cool. Like, can you expand upon any of those things? You can't just say that, right? You have to demonstrate it for me. It's similar to why we can't put soft skills on the skills section of a resume. If you said, what's your strength? And I just said, oh, I'm hilarious. You'd be like, you can't just say you're hilarious. Like, you gotta tell jokes and stuff so I can decide you're hilarious. But yet, people all the time think they can just say, well, communication, and we're gonna believe it. So here, that's what not to do. Let's talk about what to do. So the overall best way to do this is to name the strength, give an example of how you're doing it in your current position, how you've used it before, and how you will use it in the future in this job. So first, you're naming the strength, and you really want to think about this ahead of time, right? Just like everything else, we prepare. So look at that job description and see what are the strengths that you have based on that job description. Jot down 1 or 2. Now, think of an example of how you've done that thing in your current position. Or if we're not currently working, how are you doing that in your life at this moment or in a volunteer position? Anywhere where there's a great example, think of that. Then, try and think of another place you use that. Maybe you used it in a different way. So let's go with communication. Let's say in your current role, you have to do a lot of presentations. So you're gonna talk about your communication skills and how you use that in giving information to large groups. But before this, I worked in a job where I worked one-on-one with people. And so I really worked on my interpersonal communication skills there. So you're gonna give how you're currently using it, and then how you used it in the past. Even if it's the same way, talk about how you used it before just to strengthen the strength. So you're going to strengthen the effect of that skill. So not only have I communicated in this position, but I've been doing this for years because I also did it in this other position. And then the clincher, you're going to say how you will use it in this new position. So currently, I use my strength this way. Before that, I was in this other position where I used it in this other way. And the beauty of it is I see it really working for this position in this way. Okay? Because you're looking at that job description, you can see the types of things you need to be doing. And so you can talk about it one more time and say, this is how I would do it here. Y'all, if you do this, this is an awesome interview answer. Now, if you want to do it fast and you think there's 2 things you can highlight, you can do 2, but please no more than 2 strengths. And I will say, if they say, what is your greatest strength? 1, we give 1 and we give really strong examples for that 1. So make sure you're listening to their question. Think through how you want to answer it and answer accordingly. Don't give 3 if they ask for 1, but give 1 or 2, depending on how they ask, with really strong examples of a currently, before, and okay, y'all, today we are tackling that super hard, kind of sucky interview question. How have you handled a difficult situation or conflict at work? No one likes this question, right? It's not a fun one. So today we will talk about how to ride the fine line of answering that question, right? Without sounding like we're a problem or other people are just super difficult in our minds. We'll talk about the right way to answer it, how to use that STAR method, and what not to do. Let's talk about how do you handle a difficult situation at work, or tell me about a time you handled a difficult situation at work. So first, let's think about the why behind the question. And I think this is something y'all need to do no matter what. I sat in a lot of interviews this week where people just answered point blank our questions. And I kind of went, why didn't you think about why we were asking it? Because if you had, you may have answered differently. So why are they asking this question? The key thing is they want to see how you handle conflict, right? So if they say, how did you handle a difficult situation instead of how did you handle conflict, just know it's all about conflict. I think too, sometimes they're looking for how do you handle taking responsibility, the way you treat others, etc. So you want to be mindful of those things while giving your answer. Now, to answer this, we go back to our trusty STAR method, right? It's situation, task, action, result. So first you want to give the situation and the task. Those tend to go together, and this is where you're going to focus on why was there a conflict, right? People sometimes just say, oh yeah, well, this person wasn't pulling their weight. Well, why, right? Give a little bit of the background as to why there became a conflict in the first place. This is also a helpful place to think about focusing on, was this a miscommunication? Was the why that this was kind of a one-time thing? This wasn't the status quo of the way things were at work. What set this apart to give it a conflict? Then you want to give the action. What did you do to help resolve this conflict or to resolve this conflict? Now, here's where we might want to add some things to kind of show some self-awareness and a little bit of understanding of proper ways to deal with conflict. So you don't want to say that there is a conflict and that you just started yelling at everybody. You'd be surprised. You'd think that wouldn't be everyone would know not to do that. Not always the case. So think about adding in details like, did you go home and think about it for a night before coming back with your response to the situation? Did you try to hear everybody out and gain different perspectives to see why there was a conflict? Give the detail to how you responded. A lot of people kind of go to the last step of their action, which was probably talking to somebody or organizing. It was the last step, but give the process of how you got to that last step, okay? Then, this is the key, and I always talk about this with STAR method, you have to give the result. People love to end on, yeah, I went around, they love to end on the action. Yeah, I went around and I talked to everybody and I realized, oh, the reason we had conflict was because this person was seeing the situation this way and this person was seeing it that way. And so I brought us all together to talk about our different perspectives and how we could work it out. They love to end there. That's not the result. The result is what happened after that. Did that work it out? Did the people then see each other's sides? Did you all come to one final strategic goal with the situation? You've got to give that result. So make sure to add that part. And then lastly, what not to do. We do not want to throw people under the bus. So even if your conflict is that you had the worst boss on the face of the planet, we do not want to say that. We have to give some sort of understanding to why the other person might have been difficult. So just make sure in your answer to this question, you don't throw anyone under the bus. Now, some tips on this. Practice this at home. If you do not practice, you will throw somebody under the bus because you haven't thought about the way to craft kindly their position. So make sure you practice this at home, and the first time, write it out the way you'd write out your answer if you were talking to a friend. So say, well, my boss was a monster and had way too high of expectations and wanted me to do way too much in this amount of time, and there was just no way, there was a time conflict with another thing, right? Go through that ranty version. Then go back and reword it and soften it so that you have some understanding of your boss was dealing with a lot at once, and so that carried over onto you, okay? But you can't get there if you don't write the crazy version, the word vomit version first. So do it at home so you don't say that in the room. And today we are going over how to answer the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years in an interview? So on top of answering this question, we're also going to talk about why they're asking it, what they're looking for, how to answer if you don't really want to stay at that company, and how to answer if you have absolutely no clue what you want to do in 5 years. Okay, so starting off, what are interviewers asking for when they ask this type of question? Well, first, they're looking to see if you are a motivated, ambitious person, right? Do you have goals? Do you have things you're setting for yourself that you want to achieve? They're also looking to see what's your long-term thoughts about the company. Are you going to stay with them? Are you going to try and go elsewhere? But they also are looking to see, do you understand how to set realistic expectations? So if you are going for an admin assistant position and they ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you say, well, I hope that I'm a senior level manager. You don't seem to understand how this works. So make sure that your answer shows ambition, that you are hoping to grow and move up in your position, but it's realistic. So is it one promotion by then? If you're in mid-level management, 5 years is right about the time where you might be looking for something new, or maybe you're just gonna say, I would hope that in 5 years I have an expert level of knowledge over this role and will be starting to seek out higher opportunities in the company, right? You're not saying, oh, I think I've made 3 jumps by then. You're saying, this is where I really think I would be realistically in that position. So make sure your answer is realistic. Now, if you do want to make a jump, incorporate how this job will get you to that place. So you're not just going to say, oh, well, I hope in 5 years that I've been promoted to associate or manager, whatever that next position is. You're going to say, well, I hope that I really gain that foundational knowledge in this job that I need to take the next steps and move into a higher position. You know, my goal is to one day be a manager of a sales department, but I know that I have to start at this level and learn everything about, you know, the ground level work so that I can be an excellent manager down the road. So incorporate this job into the answer. If you have no clue what the next step is, but you want to move your way up, you can talk about hoping to get a solid foundation of how the department works through this current role so that I can take on bigger challenges and take on bigger opportunities and grow within the company in the future. So it's a little more general, but it's saying, I understand I need base knowledge to go for something higher down the road. If you love the company, tell them that you want to stay in the company. So basically, if this job aligns with your dream job, tell them how it aligns and how you want to work on those things to get you to that dream job in the company in the future. No one is going to be hurt by that answer. People want loyal employees, so they'll be happy to know you want to stay with them. Now, if you don't feel that way, don't lie. They will be able to see through it. Okay, so what if you don't care about this job at all, or it doesn't align with your bigger plans, or this job is just a paycheck, right? Like, we need a job, we need to get paid, so we are interviewing for this. Well, you can let them know, you know, I'm not quite sure what the future holds. I don't quite know what my next step is, but I'm very excited for the opportunities I get in this current position, and I'm just excited to dig in and learn as much as possible here to hopefully clarify and figure out what my next steps will be. This is also what you can do if you have no clue, because that was really an answer for, I have no idea. And it's a totally fine and valid answer. No one needs you to have like a perfectly filled out 5-year plan, but you have to respond in some way. So that's a helpful way to let them know, hey, I'm not sure what's gonna be next, but I can promise you that right now in this position, I'm gonna give it my all. You're at the job interview and they ask you, tell us about your greatest accomplishment. And you go, oh crap, I don't know what I've done. Well, we need to prepare for this question. So that's what I'm going to help you do today. Today we are going to talk about how in the heck do you answer what is your greatest accomplishment and why. Now, for some of us, I think the what is your greatest accomplishment question is actually harder to answer than the what is your biggest weakness question. People do not like talking about themselves. I hear this from a lot of you. I have a hard time selling myself. I don't know how to talk about myself in an interview. So the greatest accomplishment question can really freak you out. So let's get prepared for it now. First thing I want you to do, I want you to write a list of everything you are proud of that you've done. This could be work related or personal. Now, I will be honest that some of the personal things probably aren't the right place to write them in or to say them in the interview, but we're not there yet. Just write down anything you are proud of that you've accomplished. It could be running a marathon. It could be turning that giant project in on time and your boss telling the whole office what a great job you did. You choose. Okay, so you've got a list. Now I want you to go back to that job description and look at what they're asking for. Also read over the company values on their page and see if any of your accomplishments match something in the job description or something in their values. So if they say, we value endurance, we value persistence, talking about how you ran a marathon and how you trained for it and got up every day and ran 13 miles on a Saturday to practice for the race down the road and then ran 26 point whatever miles, that demonstrates persistence. That demonstrates, obviously, endurance. So it might be a good fit. You want to be looking at that job description, the values, see what you've done that matches those. You are going to answer in the STAR method formula. So take that story and write it out as situation, task, action, result. So I decided that I wanted to get healthy in 2019, and so I downloaded something from Pinterest that was a checklist of how to run a marathon in a year. And I decided to dedicate this much time every day. So that was the situation. Now the task. I decided to dedicate a specific amount of time every day to run. And I marked those times on my calendar. And then the action. And so I ran every day. And then the result. And I ended up running my first marathon. I finished in blah, blah, blah amount of time, and I did it in October. And I am just so proud of myself that I set a goal and I followed through and finished it. That's what mattered more. The health benefits were great, but seeing that I had that persistence and endurance was a really huge accomplishment in and of itself. So we tied it back into that company. So you want to use the STAR method. Now, I think it sometimes helps to know, why are they asking this question? What the heck is this for? Number one, they're trying to see your work ethic. Do you finish what you start? When you put your mind to something, how do you execute it? It also shows an example of how you work, right? Were you dedicated and got up every morning at 5 a.m. to complete that goal? Or did you set a certain time aside at work? Or did you do like a boot camp style? You crammed that project into one weekend and you went hard for the weekend and you still finished it with great results. It gives them an idea of your style, but it also, in case you hadn't figured it out, is going to be a great way to see if you match their core values. Based on what you choose that you accomplished will show them if your values match up with theirs. So keep that in mind, that they are also looking at it of an idea of, do they have similar values to leave your last position? That's a fun one, right? We're all thrilled to talk about the reasons why we left. Now, hopefully they were easy reasons, but I've heard from a lot of you in the comments, like, what do I do when I had a toxic work environment, a horrible boss, etc.? How do I answer this question? Well, in this video, we are going to talk about how to answer the why did you leave your last position question and the things you definitely cannot say. So let's be real. Why did you leave your last position is a dumb question. I don't quite get why interviewers still ask it, because it's gonna be a BS answer. Like, that's just the truth. If I worked somewhere where I had an insane boss, I'm not gonna go, oh, I'm ready to leave my last position because they're crazy. Like, my boss is an insane person who yells at me all the time. That's not gonna happen. You're never going to say that. Or, I'm bored to tears. They don't really give me a lot to do, and frankly, I'd like to be challenged. Or the opposite. It's super hard and they make me work like a dog all the time, and I just really want something where I can kind of coast a little bit. Like, you're not gonna get a real answer. So what do? We can't be that honest. What do we do instead? So I would choose one of the following ways to answer the question. Number one, you're ready to leave your last position because you're ready for a new experience. You know, this is a great one to use if it's a lateral move or if it's moving up the rung. I feel like I've done all I can in this position and I'm just ready for a new experience. Or I understand that this is very similar to what I did at this company, but I know you have a totally different culture here. You do things a certain way, and so while on paper it might look like I'm doing the same thing, I know that I'd be getting a brand new experience being at your company. And then you turn it on them, and we talk about company values and the culture and how we are a good fit for it. Okay, so this is the one we use when we have gone as far as we can go in our current company and you realize there ain't no way you're getting promoted. So you can say, you know, this position came up and I saw that it does some of the things I've done before, but there's some new opportunities here, and I'm just really ready to grow and challenge myself. I feel like I've done all I can in my last position or in this current position, and I'm ready to move on and take the next step. So it's all about growth, new challenges. I see the challenges in this position, and notice on these, we're taking a question that's about our old position and putting the focus back on why we're a good fit for this new position. Another thing you can say is you're ready to move to something where you're more passionate about it. So we don't want to bash a company. We never throw anyone under the bus. But there is a diplomatic way of saying, you know, I really appreciated the work I did and I love the people I worked with at my last position, but I really want to move into an industry that I have more passion around. And that's why I'm excited at the opportunity to work with you, because we have the same passions on yada, yada, yada. Or I'm much more passionate about working in this department for this reason. So focus it towards passion and not boredom of the last place. Now, let's say it really was toxic in some way. Maybe you got a new boss who made things kind of a living nightmare. Well, what you can say is, you know, the office changed directions. This new person came in and they kind of took the company in a different direction, and it didn't quite align anymore with my own values or what I thought my job responsibilities were. And so I figured it was time to start looking for something new where I am better aligned. That's a diplomatic way of saying my boss was a nightmare. So those are a couple of ways that you can answer the why do you leave your last position question without, you know, throwing anyone under the bus, bashing anybody, rambling on and on about what a bad environment it was and getting stressed out. So hopefully those help you. Please leave me a comment down below with how you would answer this question if asked. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you know when new videos come out. I will see you in the next one. Bye.